Hey everybody, welcome back to Story Time with Primo. I am your host, Primo, and this is where we tell stories in the car world, some crazy stuff, and basically tell you whether these stories are real, legit, if they're just stories, or if they are just complete hoaxes and myths. So today's story is the story of El Milagro. It is how the Mexican mechanic saved Ferrari. And this is from, we'll just get right into it. In the 1950, the Pan America race arose, one of those demanding endurance races in history that tested the best cars and the most experienced and daring drivers of the time. In 1954, Umberto Maglioli in his Ferrari 375 Plus was in the lead on the fourth and final stage of the race. Shortly before finishing the fourth stage, his car began to fail. His Ferrari 375 Plus had an oil leak through a hole in the carter in the middle of nowhere and without spare parts for this vital part of the car. The hopes of finishing the race were practically nil. In the fifth stage of the race, and when the car was practically about to stop working, Umberto Maglioli made a stop in the middle of the road when he saw a small workshop called El Milagro. Maglioli was received by Renato Martinez, who was the owner and only mechanic of the workshop in the middle of nowhere. Renato Martinez confirmed to Maglioli that it was indeed an oil leak in the crankcase and that he had a creative solution to repair it momentarily, at least so that he could finish his journey. Renato Martinez took a bucket and a big bar of soap, and he also took 3 small Coca-Cola bottles and gave them to Maglioli, saying, "While you drink these Coca-Colas, I will repair your car." An incredulous Maglioli could only sit down, drink the Cokes, and wait for a miracle. Meanwhile, Renato Martinez disassembled the Ferrari, and using the bar of soap, he started gradually rubbing the crankcase with it. By friction, the soap melted and created a paste that sealed the leak hole. The soap cut the oil and adhered to the metal of the crankcase, and when solidified, it turned hard as a rock. Amazed, Maglioli thanked Renato and pulled out of the Ferrari a small Rolleiflex camera which he used to take a picture of that miraculous moment. El Milagro workshop and Renato next to Ferrari 375 Plus under repair were immortalized. Umberto Maglioli in his Ferrari 375 Plus finished the fifth stage of the race in first place and changed Ferrari's history forever. Although Ferrari was a well-known car in Europe, it was not in America, and thus the brand far from being an economically viable business. Ferrari desperately needed to prove to America that their cars were superior, fast, and reliable. Winning the race would bring them recognition, and with it, sales in the United States, which would help them save the brand from bankruptcy. Sometime later, Renato Martinez received by postage mail the printed photograph that Maglioli had taken of the moment. The photograph was signed, "To my friend Renato M. from Umberto Maglioli." The photograph came along with a letter that thanked Renato, and it read, "Renato, Mexican miracle that helped Ferrari." And that letter was signed by a man called Enzo Ferrari. So if you just like the story, you can stop here. You hit that like button, follow the channel, and you get a great story. Carry on with your life. But if you want to know the truth, just keep watching. So is this true? It is true that Umberto Maglioli did win the 1954 Carrera Panamericana, but that's about it. This story is a tale as old as time, and it has continued to be viral as an exciting story of a good old working guy using extraordinary experience to solve a difficult problem and find the fame that you would actually love to have, when in reality he could probably care less. But it's sprinkled with enough truth. Well, it's why few people actually fact check this stuff. For instance, this race was a great addition to Ferrari's winning lineup, and the brand was effectively young, but it had already proven itself both on the track and in America. And in fact, Magliola's major competition in this race was 2 other Ferrari 375 MMs. I think a more glaring clue is the garage name itself, Taller El Milagro, or translated directly to the Miracle Workshop. It's just a little too nail on the head, if you ask me. Maglioli wasn't in the lead the whole race, and it wasn't until he hit Mexico City just behind Phil Hill that he decided to pour on the speed, winning every checkpoint. Except, of course, the last one. Phil had problems with his car, which gave Maglioli at that point a 24-minute lead. At this point, there were no complaints from anyone of any oil leaks in the history of books at all. And even if he did have one with at most a 24-minute lead, he certainly wouldn't be sitting around snapping photos or drinking Cokes. Still, a story did pop up of an oil problem that he stopped at a little shop to fix it, and it's probably this very tall tale that gave the inspiration for this one. The reality was all this usually doesn't stir up the common listener. The biggest question most ask is, can soap fix an engine oil leak? And there are some crazy stories of, rigged systems or engines out there. Women's hoses as accessory belts, using Coca-Cola to make batteries work. But no mechanic I've ever spoke to had heard of such a move similar to what happened in the story. And it's possible the heat from the engine itself would just melt the soap. It is true that soap would clean oil, but that's about it. If he was leaking gas, that would have been more credible. If you're a shop, I think you'd have a welder, though. But, of course, that wouldn't be very exciting for the story. This is where the story's embellishment really falls apart, but it's possible the telling of the tale has changed to be easier for the listener so that it adheres itself to memory. What's funny is the sponsor of Magliola was Industrious 123, and that was a company that made soap. On a side note, due to the rules, if he had torn down the engine, it would have gone against the rules of the race itself, and his win could have been stripped. I highly doubt he would even risk it when he had a lead and when he had no problem keeping, and he just push it over the line if he wins. He's definitely not going to let anybody else touch his car while he's just sitting around sipping a Coke. That's something that a driver like that would never do. They'd be in there on top of the car, making sure that everything was done a perfect way. So it would be easier for him to just do it himself or have the race team do it. The truth was, this was our artist Felix Hernandez. He's the one that told this tale, which is considered an old tale, and it gained traction around January, I think, of 2024. And he had added some compelling generated photo of the moment made from a diorama that looked really awesome. So the picture we're seeing is actually a created photo that he created. He said he was told the story while drinking in London, but we've also heard that he heard it on a story, was on a flight to Boston. Regardless, the teller of the tale has gone unnamed, but it's not a new story, so it's completely possible that he did hear it from somebody and decided to take some creative license and made it into a more compelling story, adding his photo to seal it up. And obviously, a lot of people looked at it and said, hey, is this a real story? If you really take it apart in any way, your brain will tell you, wait a minute, if the picture isn't real, the whole story falls apart. And that's where it comes up, is that he made a story, he made a picture, he made a diorama, it was for his photo class, and there you go. That's why he told the story. He made a great picture. He enticed us to dream of being part of history of an incredible racing car such as Ferrari. And at the time, when it was in its infancy, it's a compelling story. But just like any good tale, it is better suited for the campfire than the history books. And on that note, I want to thank you guys for tuning in. This has been Story Time. I hope we didn't destroy too much of your belief in the mysteries of the world. Trust me, there are a lot of very cool stories out there in the car world that actually are true, and we're hoping to pull some of those up in the future for you to check out. But until next time, everybody keep reading those stories, sending us over in the comments, and as always, Excelsior.